Let's get started with our final roundtable discussion, which will look at developing the future of AI workforce. Our moderator for this discussion is Dr. Matt Mullarkey. Dr. Mullarkey is a professor of instruction in the School of Information Systems and Management and the director and co-founder of the Doctor of Business Administration program at the Muma College of Business at USF. He's a Fulbright co-research scholar, an extraordinary associate professor in the Center for Applied Research and Management at the Northwest University, South Africa, an interdisciplinary fellow, a member of the advisory board for the Innovation Value Institute at the National University of Ireland, a member of the governance committee for the USF Institute of Applied Engineering, and a fellow at Tampa General Hospital Research, the academic medicine partner for USF. So now I'll turn it over to my colleague and friend, Matt, to facilitate the panel discussion and the Q&A that would follow. Matt, please.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the future of the AI workforce. It's happening right now, and you're all part of it. And I'm really excited to introduce the panel that we have before you today for the purpose of discussing the practical realities of what's happening today to transform our AI workforce. You know, we used to say, what was the source of the digital transformation of your company? Was it the CIO, the CEO, or COVID? We can almost say the same thing about AI. What was the source of the AI transformation of your workforce? And if you don't say ChatGPT, I think you're lying, you know, in certain respect. However, the panelists that we have here before you have been living with and implementing solutions around AI in the workforce for many, many years. In many cases, all that's old is new again, right? But we're very excited. There have been a few AI deserts in the past. I remember one in the 80s, something in the 90s, early 2000s. Maybe AI is really here to stick and stay and become part of everything we do and the way we do business. And so what will the human factor, the human training of models, the deploying of models, engaging with models, what is it, not what will it look like, what does it look like today? And how do we anticipate how we can position the people in our organization to best engage with, be enhanced by, and even exploit the AI tools that are becoming more and more readily available. We've seen user interfaces transform in all kinds of tech, where it becomes less about the tech and more about the usability. And I think you're going to hear some examples today of how that usability is transforming the nature of work and thus the skills, capabilities, and frankly, the contributions of workers in our workplaces, of the human, if it will. I always like to say I'm a design science research person. I spend a lot of my time working with organizations to design the future of products, services, systems, and processes. And there's kind of a relatively famous quote that I'm going to bastardize to say that, you know, the best way to predict the future is to design it. And so the people that are here in front of you are already designing the ways that AI is enhancing the work that gets done in their businesses in order to drive really one of three things: productivity, profitability, or native intelligence about the business. What I'd like to do today is have them each introduce themselves and give you an anecdote of something transformative that is happening with the workforce related to AI in each of their businesses. I think when you hear their introductions, you'll realize that we have quite a cross-section of business professionals who are able to talk to about every aspect of AI in the workforce. And then I'll ask them, once they've done that, we've gone through that, I'll direct a series of questions to the panel for consideration. We also have 3x5 cards, I think, out here somewhere. If you'd like to ask a question, who do we have in the audience that can give them cards? We'll come back to that. Dan, you could give them cards now. Do you have cards at the tables? Okay. If you do have a question that arises, I don't promise to ask it, but if you fill out a card, we will have somebody go by. Jim Cardoso, I think, will run around and grab some of those a little bit later in the presentation. So without further ado, let me kick it off and ask Eric if you'll lead us in the initial introduction.
Yeah, certainly. I guess everybody can hear me all right. Eric Vogelpohl. So I am a field CTO for a large tech firm, about a $6 billion firm called Presidio. We're based out of New York City, but we're nationwide, a little bit in Europe as well. And as a field CTO, I focus really on three things, and that's helping companies use data, traditional machine learning, so the AI of old, data science, as well as, of course, the fateful, November of 2022 when GPT-3 was invented. Now we all have to deal with the LLM side of the AI story as well. So I help them embrace that. I thoroughly enjoy my job. My tech is my life and tech is my hobby, so I have the perfect balance. You asked about an anecdote, one anecdote that we're sharing. I think this is probably the most prescient anecdote that I can share, at least with respect to the companies that I work with. And I deal with a lot of, let's just say, mid-sized to large enterprises that make up the Fortune 500, the Russell 1000. Netflix is not my client. Netflix typically does not need my services. They can do a lot of that stuff on their own. But I work with tons of healthcare organizations and manufacturing firms and professional services firms. And one thing that we jump to, and this is an important anecdote, I think, for all of you to take, one thing that we jump to with respect to AI and data science that we're so eager to solve is the vertical usage. So the clinical side of healthcare, for example, spotting cancer or drug innovation or genomics, for example, or if it's manufacturing, they want to jump into quality and defects and other aspects. But once we start to unpack the opportunities of AI, generative AI, one of the things that I'm finding my customers say is, you know what? I have this back office behemoth that's just called corporate. And corporate has compliance and legal and the risk department and the finance department and the accounting department and the HR department and on and on and on and on and on. Can you help me apply AI and generative AI to those use cases? Because frankly, those horizontal opportunities, those opportunities that span many industries, have collectively a very large impact to productivity and cost savings. So that's one area we start with, just dealing with things like compliance documents that need to be written. I have a client that has saved enormous amounts of time because a generative AI model helps them read through tomes of PDFs and writes a very nice PDF report based on the findings that an individual can read. That's just one example of how this is transformative.
Perfect, Eric. We'll come back. Avik.
Hi, everyone. My name is Avik Batra. I'm a managing director with Accenture Song. Accenture is a large professional services firm. We do consulting services, technology services, business process management services, and I sit within an entity that is focused on the human and how we stitch together the services that we provide for our clients in a solution that makes sense for our customers' customers, right? If you look at it from a macro level, technology changes are hard, but if you put the human at the center of it, you can simplify it for use, right? And how we've been looking, as Eric has mentioned, AI has been around for quite a while. We've been developing and deploying solutions for many clients, through the decades with artificial intelligence solutions. And in November 2022, it democratized the technology for use for everyone to be able to use it on the massive computers that they hold in their hands or phones, right? And so we've taken the approach of, we believe it is the future. We're taking the approach of training all 700,000 employees on how they're going to need to start using this in their specific technology and function so that they work more efficiently. But we're also taking it to market and working with clients. I specialize in the state and local government industry, and we had a client that just recently we helped solution a call summarization use case for a human services contact center, right? So an agency that is supporting citizens in need with family assistance programs, traditionally have and historically have very long average handle times, right? So people waiting in telephone queues, then the call itself taking a while, and then the post-call work that the agent has to do taking a while before the next customer or citizen or resident is served. When that happens, we start talking to clients and saying, hey, you can re-architect your process. You can use a new, customer relationship management tool to start, creating efficient cloud-based IVRs. But this client was interested in using generative AI technology or a large language model in a low-risk scenario today to help free up capacity on, in a very fragile workforce already, right? And so what we did was like, great. Let's have a pilot set of agents use the technology where we built and deployed a model in their existing cloud environment with their existing security controls. And what we've noticed is if you have a large language model listen to that call conversation, it can start auto-writing the post-call handle notes, writing action items for that agent to take with tier 2 support, and quickly review those notes, submit it, move on to the next call. And it's been live for about 2 weeks, already noticing average handle time reduction with those pilot agents by 2 minutes. And that's a lot, right? With 22 agents, 2 minutes per call, you're serving the next customer right away. So there are low risk scenarios where you can use these large language technologies in a controlled environment based upon the technologies these clients already have, and get to outcomes much faster. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Avik.
Hi, I'm Angela Koff. I actually work with the Department of Defense in the Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office. For those of you that were here for the keynote speaker today, you would have heard from my boss, and that's Craig Martell. I am originally from industry, so I'm bringing the industry perspective into the department. And the CDAO has taken a unique position in that we are at that level within the department over a massive organization, the largest organization in the world, looking at creating a cohesive framework under which folks who operate and serve as practitioners across data analytics and AI have the ability to actually work as a cohesive team of practitioners and have the communities of practice support tools and environments necessary to make it possible. One interesting theme that I think I've already heard twice now is if you were looking for ways in which you could really bring sort of like that stellar skill set to the AI community, it is product management. Because regardless of what you're going to do in this space, even if you're deploying technology, you're still going to have to understand the core problem that needs to be solved. You're going to have to be able to distill that into a series of activities that can then solve for that problem and then test whether or not you did it right and whether or not you made a difference. And one of the common themes across the department as well is the need for their business operations to truly scale to meet the department's needs of the future in the most effective and efficient way. If we were to put a dollar value on people's time within the department and the amount of time that they spend going from disparate system to disparate system, transforming their lives, and the fact that it's built into the nature of the department, the ability to go from one job to another every 2 to 3 years, there is a massive amount of man hours that is used to just shuffle paper or to just move from one place to the next. And so we're actually looking at a lot of use cases that are really focused on those activities. They don't sound fun, they don't sound novel, but they have a huge human impact. And so among some of those common themes on business are also the need for humans to be in the loop with respect to a lot of the decision-making processes that any automated technology is deployed within the department to do. So I think you'll hear that as a common theme up here as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Angela. Sharon.
Hi, everyone. Sharon Daniels. I am a co-founder and the CEO of a company called ARIA NLG, which stands for Natural Language Generation. This is a very exciting time for me because I started working with the chief scientists who were the founders of this technology, the original algorithms, out of Aberdeen, Scotland in late 2011, 2012. So this has been part of my world for over a decade now, and to see the evolution of natural language technologies really front and center right now is exciting. Over the years, we've worked with some of the largest corporations on the planet to help prove out the platforms that are trusted today in production. What's possible and what's already proven is really important today with some of the newer natural language capabilities. So today I'll share what we're currently doing with Fortune 100 companies like Fidelity and Pfizer and some other companies like Home Depot or Estee Lauder. The use cases that have become part of what we call digital transformation categories, and specifically within AI, is a lot around data analytics and language automation. So bringing those two capabilities together. Applications, popular applications, anywhere there's a tremendous amount of data, which is in lots of places across businesses and across government. We can automate the process of understanding that, the insights and the relevant insights within that data at machine speed, and then communicate those insights through natural language. So I like to share that we are wired to understand language. We're not always wired to understand volumes and volumes of data. It takes teams of people to do what we can automate today. So I'm really excited to share what's possible and what's already proven. What used to take a team of 70 people 30 days to produce can now be done with the push of a button. Once that's set up, the benefits, you have speed to information, which is critical. The nature of this conference is strategic competition. To be in competition, you have to be better, faster, more accurate, consistent, all the benefits that this type of technology can bring to the world. So it's moving fast, faster than ever. I'm really very, very excited and proud to be part of this panel here, and hope we can educate you today on what's already happening.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharon.
All right, I'm Joe Partlow. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for ReliaQuest. We are a Tampa-based cybersecurity firm, 6 or 7 global offices around the world. And really what we do is we provide security services and our security operations platform for enterprise-level businesses. So think Fortune 500 and large-scale enterprises. I've been in cybersecurity for 25 plus years, always been kind of a passion of mine, so been interested in working in it throughout that long of a time frame. Really kind of my role at ReliaQuest currently is split half and half. So as CTO, certainly from a product and services standpoint, I work with our product teams, our development teams for really what's next for our platform. Of course, AI is now forefront of that. Like a lot of the other folks on the panel, we've had a data science team for the past 5 or 6 years or longer, but really in the past year and a half, we've really kind of seen that speed up, and it's really enabling non-data scientists to take advantage of these types of tools and use AI. And even though they're not as traditional developers of kind of the machine learning side of it, they do know the context better than a lot of those folks. So being able to take what they know and what they're experts in, and in this case cybersecurity, and use those tools to provide better answers, more consistent answers, has really been a huge win for us just in the short time. And I think the biggest thing that I think probably all of us in this room agree is just the speed of how fast things are moving, how much better these models are performing. Even things that came out a few months ago, we're seeing exponential increases. Obviously, given what we do from a cybersecurity standpoint, we do look at the evil side of this as well. So we have teams that are looking at how can hackers use this technology, and they certainly are. How can they use it for creating deepfakes? So if anybody who's looked at kind of the deepfake technology, just in the past 3 months, it's been phenomenal how much better that stuff gets, which is kind of cool and kind of scary a little bit. So we've got teams that are kind of always testing the limits to see, hey, from a defensive side, where do we need to keep up from? And I think that's kind of one of the biggest wins that we've seen. And from a customer ask is, Obviously, ChatGPT was kind of the first one that broke through a little bit. And we do use chat in certain areas of our product, but for us, that's probably one of the lesser interesting pieces. Where we're getting a lot of value out of it is the automation capability. So being able to have a platform that has maybe multiple models, and we use certain models for certain things. That could be doing language translation for our customers that are overseas and English is not the first language, being able to take those security write-ups and translate them on the fly, or create automations where you think of, hey, if somebody clicks on a phishing email or if ransom gets spread in the environment, obviously speed is kind of critical for there. So how are we making those decisions faster? How are we enabling automation to do all the security controls and all the things that we've been doing for decades just faster and more consistent? So I think that's, for us, it's really kind of the automation side of it. Are we in danger of replacing our entire security operations center with GPT models? Not yet, by any means, but it's certainly making them more consistent, faster, and really it's been a win for everybody across, even not just the technical folks in our company, but really empowering even our marketing teams and our training teams to take advantage of this technology. And we were talking a little bit before the panel started of, well, hey, are all your workers going to be AI workers? And for us, yes. To some extent. I've certainly got the folks that are building the models, testing the models, implementing the models, but even folks that are in our sales team or our HR team are really expected to provide feedback and help train those models or create the prompts to make those better. So for us, it's been a huge win. And like I said, automation is probably the number one thing that we're focusing on.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. And I want to follow up on that last point. But just before I do want to recognize Dennis Edwards, the CIO, CTO of Kforce, who is not able to be with us today, desperately wanted to be here, but he has the C word, got COVID. So he's out of the net for the moment. But we do thank him for contributing to the panel, to our panel discussions. And he is on the cusp, as all of these folks are, of developing AI solutions in a really interesting business world. Seeing his picture there made me look at my picture, which realized, that's pretty scary, actually. I'm not sure how they got that as the official photo, but Darren, could we work on that? Maybe we'll get less like me. That's it. Exactly. Perfect. Well, good. Joe, let's follow up on that and then ask the rest of the panel. You just said, and I asked the question, are all workers AI workers? Or is it only experts and the specialists? Hit an example or two of people who are not normally considered experts in AI who have a real opportunity to take advantage, and then let's open it up.
Yeah, certainly, even the creators of, and in our case, the people that are implementing the models and building it into our product are still daily users as well. So if you think about kind of what we do from a cybersecurity standpoint, we've got experts in the various areas of cybersecurity. They are not all data scientists. They are not all programmers. So where we're leveraging that expertise is, probably our main use case really is for when we're working incidents, and it could be a phishing, a ransomware, or any of the variety of incidents that we see, taking their expertise and helping them, they are contributing back to the prompts that we're doing. So just this notion of prompt engineering, of how you ask the models to get back what you need, that's kind of a science in itself. And those of you that have played with this know that a very, very small change in verbiage, the model will either tell you how to solve the problem, or it will actually solve the problem for you. So being able to kind of make sure that we're doing the right prompt engineering, and obviously they're the experts in that field. So being able to kind of change those prompts so that we're getting the right output for maybe junior analysts or folks that maybe have just started their cybersecurity journey, because we have all kind of levels of experts in our business. So another example would be kind of our marketing folks. Obviously, the marketing team is not contributing to creating the models, but what we certainly want from them is, how are they interacting with the models? What questions are they asking? How are they asking that? And then we take a lot of that data and use that feedback to help train the model. So, we have kind of the most simple level of feedback of really a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So as a marketer, I could go in and I could say, hey, what are the top 10, cybersecurity subjects that I should write blog posts on? And based off the results, they may take the top couple of those and then turn around and say, hey, write me a rough skeleton of a blog post for that. that. And then based off the feedback, they can give a thumbs up or thumbs down of what they liked or didn't like. And then we take that tuning back to, whether it's retraining our model or embedding other data into our model to make it more contextual. So every layer of our company is kind of an AI worker either contributing to the model or rolling it out.
Excellent. Eric?
Yeah, I think a good framework to think about going forward of using the models is and this I don't think should be overly revolutionary, but it's certainly the time we're in, is that maybe we all start to think about ourselves as bosses, not workers. So if you think about yourself as a boss and you have next to you either a domain expert, so a model that you can ask very domain-specific questions, in a very supportive mode, right? So this is the model helping you with summarization, QA, understanding nuance, contextual, these type of things, the things we know that these models do brilliantly. You can think about them as essentially serving you. And it's not going to be far, folks, where Microsoft Copilot and all the derivatives of the Copilots and the Googles and the G Suites and the Duets, I think it's now called Gemini, these will go from the supportive mode to the agent-based mode, where these platforms really become an assistant to you. So I think in the future's not too far away, that the average task worker, the average information worker, thinking of yourself as a boss of a set of agents that support you over a period of time is the correct way of thinking about it.
I think we were talking about, and I'm going to ping Sharon for a thought on this too. We were talking about the fact that if you are still in the mode of type writing or entering minutes for your meetings, you need an AI solution, right? Sharon?
I think AI is going to influence every worker at some level. For the expert, we're able to capture that knowledge into software and share it. So it will democratize expertise. So we're doing that today. That's how we automate. For the non-expert, so for the expert, extending on that role, that person will be a superhuman analyst because he or she will have the tools to do what they do, but much faster. For the non-expert, now you have the capability of sharing and democratizing the expertise. So it's capturing that knowledge of the expert, whether it's for legacy or just to expand. And it's all about getting things done better, faster, with more accuracy. So AI is, it's not one thing. In the world of ARIA, it's all about data analytics and communicating insights that can be actioned much faster. So we are a tool, really, for the human. And it's as it pertains to the latest technologies with LLMs and GPT, it is an augmentation to what we call at ARIA deterministic language generation, where it's rules-based. You capture the information. It can be audited, audited, controlled in a platform, and then you can come around and add more about the why using an LLM. But for today, there are people that are trusting AI to, in mission-critical decision-making, it must be accurate. So that's a real hot topic around AI today. But the workforce is, I think, just going to continue to accelerate, as it has been over the decades.
Lovely. I appreciate that. And I want to pick up on that thread that says that there is something about AI today that is leveling the playing field for and with our workers. And Avik, I know you are seeing this and have some thoughts on that and the opportunity it presents to actually increase capacity in the workforce.
Yeah, just piggyback off what others have said already, it's not a matter of if, it's when, right? And being able to understand the right risk tolerances for specific use cases is going to help even that playing field, right? Like if we go back to the contact center example I was providing earlier, do you need to put an agent through 5 weeks of training to start serving customers when you can have the right content being brought up to that agent when serving that customer because a model is listening to the call, right? And if from a risk perspective of an employer, the concept of, there's turnover that naturally happens, and the cost to serve will decrease because you don't have to put them through rigorous training, which is even the playing field in terms of competition, right? So it's just, these technologies are going to be used to, level everyone up to the right degree in order to do their jobs. And whether you think about them as, as you're the boss and you got a bunch of agents working for you as co-pilots, right? Every organization is going to figure out how to deploy these things to make work happen more efficiently, effectively, because capacity issues are existing today, and it's just, the work is increasing, demands are increasing, and these technologies have the power to, level that playing field for both the employer, the customer, and the employee.
So in some ways, we see that it's only limited by our own ability to contemplate opportunities for the deployment of these tools, these skills in our workforce and across our business model. And I guess, the countervailing point to that is if we're not doing it, it's pretty certain that our competition is. 100%. Right? And if they're clever, smarter, faster, quicker, more thoughtful about it, they're going to get there first.
Especially if they develop an experience that's more effective.
An experience for
The
clients,
the clients, employees, right?
the supply chain, the vendors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Which-
I totally think if we continue to think about just the customer experience role itself, if we arm, as you know better than a lot of us, Avik, that if we continue to arm the LLM with the next best action, and it can determine the next best action, I think we fail as an industry if that next best action is done by a 1-800 call instead of a tweet or an in-context prompt that the customer can have their journey radically transformed without having to call the number at all.
Exactly. It's not unlike what Joe was talking about in terms of enhancing the capabilities of, blog posts and communications. And that really speaks to skills. And I'm going to ask Angela to take the lead on this one. A number of the questions that come from the audience are, as AI displaces whole sections of the workforce, what are the skills and what are the training opportunities that we ought to be taking advantage of today?
So I will contextualize this to say that this panel has a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to pass on to this that is industry related, but in the area of the Defense Department and our ability to adopt some of the attributes they're talking about, it takes a little bit longer. And we also have the need to have the knowledge, skills, and abilities and tasks that we expect to come for the future implemented within the department as a whole. And when we make choices off of models, people can die. So it takes our level of confidence and our level of consumption of this and puts it at a level of rigor that is extremely important for us to respect when it comes to the adoption of the department. That's why I like to put things into two buckets. We have tasks and skills that are going to be for the purposes of business operations. Think your day-to-day job, the way that you're going to go in, do your particular task, execute on your day-to-day activity. And then there's also those things that we would say are deployed at the tactical edge that help our warfighters when we're out defending boundaries and performing the purposes of national defense. So I think from a knowledge, skills, abilities, and tasks, we have identified and have an incredible interest within the department for ensuring that the roles that we are instituting within the department are having parity and permeability with industry. We think that there is a unique role that we have to play in actually creating more supply of this talent on behalf of the United States as a whole, because this is a fundamentally short supply group of talent. And those tasks are going to change over time, and none of us has a crystal ball with respect to how that time frame is going to lay out. But we know that we need to look at the foundational elements of good data stewardship and management. We have, ask anybody, anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 systems across the Department of Defense that run our day-to-day operations. We don't know exactly how many. We have more than 3 million people who support what we do on a day-to-day basis. Given a particular day, we don't know exactly how many. Part of this is because we're the largest organization in the world, and we don't have one HRIS that can be depended upon in order to be able to even keep those stats for us. So when we're looking at solving fundamental business problems, every single person within the organization has to be trained on what does it mean to be a good data steward. If you use information, how do you store that information? How are you going to make sure that it's captured? You know, Sharon brought up legacy. That is a huge issue in an organization that literally moves its people around on purpose. Anything that somebody touches at a given role that they're doing today is going to be gone in a period of time, and that time frame is known, and we have to be extremely diligent about how we manage the information that they produce while they're in their current role, and then ensure that that information can be passed on to the next person. So when we're looking at this, we're actually taking it down. These guys are well ahead in the model piece. We're actually taking it down a level and saying, hey, how do we actually integrate all of the authoritative data streams that we have across the department? And we have a tremendous need for people who can do that work and have the ability to create inference from data sets and know how to best archive and ensure that those data sets that we have across the department are kept in a way that is discoverable and findable. Establishing just basic Vaultus principles across everything that we have. So there is a lot of that skill set that we're trying to ensure that we can curate and deploy quickly, and also be part of the supply mechanism to make available to industry as a whole, but then also ensure that when I say somebody's a data scientist in the department, they're actually a data scientist once they leave, and that they have a job once they go out to industry, so that they can take the department's problems to Sharon, who can work with them in a different operating environment and actually come up with really good solutions for how to solve those problems. Because we also have fundamental functional limitations within the department for security purposes that prevent our utilization of some of these tools in an environment that would otherwise help us to move a little faster. So I think it's important when we're looking at these problem sets to know that our operating parameters are different, and the ability for the department to maintain that level of acuity and permeability is super key for us from a workforce management perspective to create these AI practitioners that actually have tremendous value and the ability to translate our problem sets to industry to be able to help us solve.
Beautiful. And that obviously really, really heavily applies to those seasoned experts and expertise that we've got to have to make all of this work. And then what other skills are also essential? I heard prompt engineering, for example. What are some of the other skills? Eric, and then maybe Joe.
Yeah, instead of the technical stuff, prompt engineering is awesome. I love it, and boy, you're right. A good prompt will make or break your experience, at least with LLMs. For me, the number one skill is curiosity. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to imbue that into everyone. I think there's a story to be told right now that if you went and grabbed a random selection of 1,000 people, just literally at random, and you split them into two groups, the group that is aware that there is I'm not going to get religious here, but we'll say a semi-sentient, or at least a really, really smart person that can pass really complex tests that you could use as a domain expert, as a sidekick, versus those that don't, and what the ultimate consequence is for the group of people that haven't mustered the curiosity to spend time with this new crop of LLM. I think that would be a powerful study, and to me, that curiosity and the drive to learn how these things can support you is the number one skill right now you can adopt.
Great. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be that need for subject matter experts, right? So in an age where any one of us has access to probably arguably the most powerful LLMs out there, GPT-4, Claude, you name it, whatever one's coming out this week, it's that context that's aware, right? And Eric, I love that notion of kind of being the boss, and I'm going to steal that if that's all right. Sure. Where like, for us, when we look at who we're hiring into our company, they're getting hired for a specific reason, right? We think that, hey, you're an expert at what you do. We value your opinion. You're thinking outside the box. That's what we're looking for. So being able to take that knowledge and put it in the context of a powerful model, That's really kind of the difference. So we have kind of this saying in our group, the data science group, that kind of the data is our moat. So when you think about kind of intellectual property and what's our differentiator, when everybody has access to these models, it's really still that expertise, because all of these models, I mean, everyone in here has knowledge that is not available to the model, right? If we learned anything from, if you guys remember kind of the chat bots from a few years ago, Tay and the Facebook ones, the context that they were trained on, it quickly went off the rails. So when you look at kind of how do we avoid those mistakes this time around, right, is making sure that those models are trained the right way, you have kind of the appropriate guardrails in, and having kind of these subject matter experts being able to kind of train the models and make sure that we're applying the right way so that you're keeping them on context and they don't kind of veer off on all these tangents that they may be exposed to. So I still think that the greatest skill set is be an expert at what you do, right? And be able to leverage those models and whatever comes next. I think we can all agree we're probably barely scratching the surface on where this is going and where it could go. So, keep up with what your expertise is, what you know, what you love, and then these tools are just going to make you that much exponentially better.
It's interesting you say that. I'm going to pass it to Sharon too. But if I combine that curiosity, can I demonstrate to an employer or to my current employer that I'm curious, that I'm looking, that I'm searching for ways to deploy these skills? I remember when spell check first came out, I had to kind of learn how to interface with spell check. Then I got my TI-55 calculator, and I was told at one point that was cheating to have that TI-55 because it had graph capability. Remember that? And yet these cheats, right, are in fact absolute evidence of an opportunity to apply our curiosity to these tools, and I love it. One of the questions from the crowd was, should I quit listing the languages I know, the software languages, and just say prompt engineering, And I'm not sure I'm not sure we're advocating for no programming capabilities, right? But it's probably yes and. Sharon, what else?
Yeah, I'll extend Joe's comments that, stick to what you're good at. You still have to know everything that's possible, but being able to integrate and work with partners. So really it starts with what problem are you trying to solve? And then what do you pull together to solve that problem? So problem solving would be a skill set that I think people need to really crank up. Also, change management. Not everybody is comfortable with automating something. So that's another skill set that's really going to be key in every category. AI is not scary. It's not one thing. It's different categories that roll up under that umbrella. So really having an understanding and however we can lead with education and break down AI into its categories so you know what's available when you're trying to solve a problem. And that's what we do every day with our Fortune 100 companies that we serve. They come to us, they tell us what they're trying to achieve. I'm a big advocate of automate what you can and free up time, provide that consistency, cost savings. That's that competitive advantage that businesses are looking for, but also the government as well.
And I love the fact that you talk about things at their basics. We still need critical thinkers. We're being tested now at university levels. Are we afraid? Are we as academics afraid that our students are going to use ChatGPT to write their next paper? I'll tell you, frankly, no. If I don't give them a more interesting assignment than one that can be solved by ChatGPT, shame on me. And frankly, if I give them an interesting assignment, and Jason knows this, and it's write a case, use ChatGPT for 80% of it, the mundane, right? The simple, and then apply your intelligence to that other 20%. And show me the work, right? Just show me the work, like we used to say in engineering. Show me how you got there using all the tools at your disposal. And, I think that is the workforce of the future. And it's the challenge that we have as academics to train our students to be prepared for your workforce. Because the fundamentals of critical thinking, how to ask elegant questions, how to think at the top of your license, which we talk about a lot in medicine. How do we get the brightest minds to be able to spend all of their time at the top of their license and not translating their notes for 2 hours or 3 hours a night as a physician, right? So all of these things are opportunities that I think we are on the cusp of. And Angela, I know you had another.
Oh, yeah, you could probably feel me staring at you.
Tell me, give it to me.
Now, this is a mixed opinion, not the opinion of the DoD, but me, okay? There are ways in which I think that technology has made us incredibly lazy with respect to curiosity and creative problem solving. My other life has a lot of retail service business experience and a lot of people that have worked for me, and there has never been a time when a workforce has had more knowledge at their fingertips in the case of a phone, and I have more questions that have been asked of me that could have been solved if somebody just Googled it. Okay? So it actually came to the point where I put it in my manual, do not ask me questions that can be Googled. And I made it part of my selection criteria for people that work for me. I say that.
By the way, I refuse to answer those questions from my students anymore because if they can Google it,
Exactly.
they probably got a better answer than what I'm going to give.
So I want to foot stomp and repeat critical thinking, problem solving, workflow automation, and a lot of these ways in which we need to look at how to work smarter and not just harder every single day. And that's where I think a lot of what we're really talking about here is going to be influenced by smart tooling. And some of those new and sort of critical skill areas, I kind of feel have been lost. It's kind of like common sense is not really common that much right now. And I think we can do better to hold ourselves accountable to us putting on our thinking caps and doing that work. So when we're looking at like some of these new roles, there could be friction analysis. If you're looking at a workflow that you do in the department, there's probably some steps that you do that are completely unnecessary, but you need somebody who's willing to challenge it and not just simply automate a bad process. You're going to need somebody who's actually going to look at what the outcomes that you're actually trying to achieve by anything that you're doing really are, and then driving towards those outcomes, not just simply digitizing something that may no longer be necessary. But that takes critical thinking, and I think there's a lot that we can do in partnership with educational institutions to get folks to really challenge themselves, because I do feel just like for most of us, I think Excel 101 was required. It was required for me in business school. I don't know many people who do that anymore, and they use Excel like a glorified table, and they don't know how to do a sum function. That is a massively powerful tool in the hands of every single worker today. And it's not even an LLM, right? So there's a lot of basic stuff that we could go back to get people strong. But I'm going to be looking for product people. I'm going to be looking for people who can problem solve.
So we've talked about a lot of these skill sets. We've talked about prompt engineering. We've talked about taking advantage of things like autopilot, which are now becoming readily available. Adding curiosity to everything we do, make sure critical thinking is part of it. I like this mantra of show your work. I also like the mantra that says, but be an expert in your space. So you're using these tools, just like all the other tools we've had in the past from technology, to enhance your ability to compete as your own boss. I love that. But we don't have to do it all by ourselves, do we? We do have an opportunity to partner, right? We don't necessarily have to think, even in these discriminant proprietary spaces, that we have to build the whole team that is there to do all of the AI functions. Could each of you talk a little bit about, in your space, where partnering helps you kind of add a capability, capacity, a speed, where you don't have to build it yourself, and where you are building it yourself, if that's really core to your competitive advantage? Anybody want to go first? Avik.
So our entire business is run on the concept of partnerships. We are not technology builders, right? We are implementers, we are sustainers, we help run, and it comes down to ecosystem partners for us, right? Like when we come and solution for our client, we're gonna say, we should be working with Microsoft, we should be working with AWS or the or the emerging technology that are coming into place. And that is where value is created, when you understand who is the top of their license and what to solve the problems that are designed properly. Otherwise, you're just going to throw technology at something and hope for the best, and it's not going to. You're not going to seek a return on your investment.
Do you have a for example?
Yeah. So for even that call, I'm just going to go back to that one example because I've been talking about it. Even that call center example. We did not build the model that caused or helped reach the outcome of the reduction of average handle time. We used an AWS service that had a Claude model and helped it stitch together to get to a product, or sorry, get it to an outcome, right? So that is where, in my opinion, I saw a crazy stat this morning that since November 2022, there have been 2,300 AI startups created. There's a gold rush happening right now. And what's going to happen, whether forcefully, naturally, that's up to debate, but there's going to be a dominant design that comes out of this on how we use certain technologies, whether humans are the bosses and their agents, whether they're co-pilots, and there's going to be providers of these models, whether they're large language models or large action models that everyone is starting to talk about now, right? And how they're going to be used in a way that accelerates and enhances how humans are going to start working smarter, right? That's where it comes down to, in my opinion.
Thank you. Other examples, partnering.
I'll jump in since we partner with Accenture. Aria is a technology development company, and that's our core capability. So we are strong there, but our clients need services. So we partner really well with companies like Accenture to provide the services, and we provide the technology. We also partner with our clients. We do a lot of listening to what they're trying to achieve, and that's part of our roadmap. So I think we're in a world of collaboration more than competition in many ways when it comes to technology advancements, and that's why I mentioned before the integrations of all these capabilities. You do need to stay on top of it because it's moving fast. You don't stop reading every day because there's always something new coming out and new capabilities. We're sitting on the shoulders of giants who developed before us, so we have been in technology a long time, and it's moving faster than it ever has before. So
How about a recent project that gives a good example?
okay, so LLMs, our financial service clients who absolutely must have accuracy when we're auto-generating a customer-facing report or a financial report, compliance or performance and risk reporting. We do things in AML, anti-money laundering, and suspicious activity reporting. 95% accuracy is not enough. So when they tested some of the capabilities of the large language models and invested heavily to do that, they came back and said, we need to partner with you, Aria, because we need to start with a foundational, deterministic platform of data to text generation, and then use an LLM as a way to augment the commentary that we auto-generate. So we're actually getting a lot of guidance. We're working with them ourselves, but then our clients and our partners give us that feedback. So we're developing faster and better as a partnership.
Joe?
Yeah, I think for us, it's something new, right? So, whether it's pride of our developers or just kind of that build versus buy mentality, we've always kind of erred on the side of building it ourselves. And I think, just the speed to market and just how quick things are advancing have really kind of forced us more into a partnership. I vividly remember 5 or 6 years ago where we said, hey, we need to build AI capabilities into our platform. This was predates a lot of the new LLMs. And I remember going to AI firms and saying, hey, what would it cost and how would we work together and partner to get this capability in? And it was well, you're going to have to give us the use case. We're going to need your test data. It's going to take about 9 months to build a model. And oh, by the way, it's going to be $6 million. So I said, no, thank you. We'll kind of build it ourselves. And we struggle with that, right? We built up a data science team, and there was a lot of iterations that we went through where, now, even up to a year ago, we were kind of still in that mindset of, we're going to build our own models. We'll base it off of the open source ones, but we're going to train it ourselves. For our purposes, we didn't need a lot of kind of what the general, models that were trained on the general internet were. It was very specific security knowledge. So we felt, hey, we're going to build the tooling up to build this ourselves. Not necessarily the models, but the interaction with that. So the ability to choose multiple models, or the ability to augment with our own data, or build kind of this notion of autonomous agents, where now I feel like, towards the end of last year, you started seeing all of the big, AWS, Google, Microsoft really kind of come out with those capabilities in their tool set. And I don't have 1,000 developers working on it like they do. So for us, it was, hey, that's great. We wanted to do this time last year, really kind of struggled in building this out. It's kind of a good validation that we were on the right path, but the speed of being able to partner with some of these folks has just got us there quicker. So now I can say, hey, I don't need to build that infrastructure. The market's there, and I can use that, and I can take my folks and really kind of build our use cases on top of that.
Yeah, I think if we had to point to one thing that has been transformative in the last 18 months, 12 to 18 months, is that ability to operationalize these tools.
100%.
Eric, you were going to...
Well, I will tack a question onto this, and I think it's important, this build versus buy, and with whom you partner, and obviously there's a partnership point of view within the company as well, or within the organization as well from a collaborative perspective. But and this is, I think, kind of profound in the sense that leaders, if you're a leader of an organization, you can mentally raise your hand. Those have raised their hands. AI is going to intermediate everything in our life. Everything. AI will be an intermediary layer to everything we do. I think a fundamental question that firms have to ask, even at the board level, is this intermediary layer that will augment and inform and help react to business scenarios and business process scenarios? Do we want this in the hands of only a couple large tech firms with whom we pay very large tax to use each time we have this intermediary experience? Or do we want to take advantage of open source technologies and build some intellectual property in-house? I think it's one of the first steps you think about that takes you down that build versus buy. And then if you decide to build, how you build, the partnership ecosystem that you surround yourself with, be it the hyperscalers or the Accentures or the Presidios or any of the other companies that are out there to help you. I think that's the first starting point for me.
I think to build on that, then, we've talked around these ideas of proprietary and non-proprietary or open data, right? Training sets, who governs the training sets, who teaches the training sets, so to speak. We've talked about deterministic and non-deterministic models. And all of these obviously affect the kind of skills we either have to have in our workforce or in the partners we partner with. And if we're going to be smart about it, we're going to figure out where we're going to invest and then how we're going to partner. I think the future, as much as in some cases we are more proprietary, we keep it in-house, or the future is both, right? And so just being very smart about it. I think we also talked, and this relates to the workforce and the skill sets, about two things called human in the loop and the fact that there's not one thing called AI. In fact, I suspect the whole panel would join me in saying AI is actually a terrible misnomer, right? We're using it because it's easy, functional, we kind of get what it is, but to be truthful, there's no true artificial intelligence in the world today that we're aware of, okay? These are all models that are being trained. But having said that, there's still the essential human in the loop. And could you each comment about, in your experience, where are the critical ways to decide, where do I put the human in the loop? You know, in my supply chain, in my models, in my processes, in my decision making, what comes to mind when I ask that? Sharon, you want to take it, and then
Sure,
Avik, I
happy
would
to.
love for you to go next.
I think the human will always be in the loop. If we're capturing knowledge into software, you start with a human. So that's the first step, even if you're doing a full end-to-end automation process. If you're augmenting humans' capabilities of analyzing and even with automation, the human in the loop, if you're using some of the newer technologies like an LLM, there's an absolute requirement to have human in the loop at that level. So until such time as the newer technologies are proven in production, they can be trusted, there'll always be a need for a human in the loop. And we'll always, hopefully, continue to evolve more and more, new capabilities and continue to innovate. So I don't see human being out of the loop ever. I think there's areas where we can fully automate, where the human can step out of that process, but even in the first instance, you're capturing this subject matter expertise. Humans will always want to be part of, being able to audit what's being done, and there's a big subject around the AI governance, how we use technology, so there's a need to bring the human in the loop there. It's just, I think once again, and I said it earlier, automate what you can once it's proven. I work with the private sector. It's typical that financial services, banking, insurance, these leaders are the ones, they have the budgets, they prove out the technology early, they've got the teams of people, and then it becomes mainstream. So I think the general answer is we'll always be innovating, there'll always be need for human in the loop.
Have you had a recent example where that really came up and you were able to say, okay, here's the point, a decision-making point or some other, where this is too important or too valuable or whatever?
Absolutely. In the area of compliance and risk, regulatory reporting, if you're turning data into written reports, in many ways it's better than a human because we tend to be error. There's human error that can happen when you're analyzing large volumes of data. There can be inconsistencies or bias. So one person might see data in a certain light and another in a different, in a different light. So this allows technology to provide the consistency and the accuracy. When you want to go beyond data-driven narratives that can be very, fact-oriented, and bring in an LLM, that's where you bring in the human, where they can use prompt engineering to say, I'd like to know more about this. Specific case in point, Apple stock went up. We can turn data into a written narrative around that stock performance, but why did it go up? Was there something did they have difficulty with getting a chip, or was it at a retail level? Was there did the weather impact? So that's where you can go and get additional information from trusted sources to augment anything that's auto-generated.
Perfect, thanks. Eric?
Go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So
please.
I have a mental model for this, and my mental model is a 2x2 matrix. And on the x-axis, I like separating work into something called forgivable work and non-forgivable work, unforgivable work, whatever the right English word would be. Forgivable work is work that can be corrected. We do it all the time. It's editing, it's journalism, it's writing code. You can correct this work and things are okay. Non-forgivable work is maybe it has a regulatory, a statutory, it's a surgeon, it's a lawyer. You have to be right. You're getting paid to be an expert and you need to do expert things and you need to do it right because there are consequences to mistakes. And then on the y-axis, maybe high return, low return, high risk, low risk, however you want to kind of scale this. And I think in terms of applying AI right now, I know it might be trite, but the kind of the bottom left, if you will, of lining up all the things that you can put into the kind of the bottom left quadrant and say, this is forgivable work and it's relatively low risk. So we're on the subject of CX, of our customer experience, I'll be the first person to say that the first thing that barely needs a human in the loop today, it still maybe needs a human in the loop, but not for too long, is just like I said, and you mentioned as well, listening to a conversation and determining a next best outcome of a customer that has a complaint. If the low risk quadrant is less than $100 return or less than $100 rebate, and you can take care of that call entirely because it's forgivable, that might be the first thing that no longer has a human in the loop. Today it might, but very quickly it may not. And I think we move between that right and left on those two dimensions over time as the models become better.
Good, so it gives us an opportunity to actually map where various models might come into play and decide to go low risk, low impact, or forgivable early and often, and build our way, learn our way in the other quadrants. Avik.
Yeah, just to add on to what folks have already been saying, there's a concept around trust, I think, that, and people have said this already in their own ways, is it's trust and then risk tolerance, right? And I would argue that there have not been humans in the loop with artificial intelligence technologies already before November 2022. I go back to what we were serving with and implementing for clients 5, 6, 7 years ago. RPA.
And remind people what...
robotic process automation is a type of AI technology.
Sure.
And, expense reporting and invoice validation and compliance with that has been heavily automated already, right? Somebody submits an expense, we deployed in a bot to verify that the receipt matched the expense amount, and then say, yeah, bot, approve it, and then issue the reimbursement.
We all know that just from our mobile deposit of checks, right? We know there's no human looking at that check.
And it comes down to risk tolerance because somebody had created a policy already around that saying, if it's X amount of dollars and the bot is able to read it on the receipt with a high trust score, issue the reimbursement, right? If it was a $10,000 one, you might want to flag a rule to have a human go look at it, right? I mean, this concept around trust and labeling is just going to evolve into the technologies that are newer today, and it's going to be around how people implement it. I mean, there's legislation at the federal level, at the state level already that we're monitoring around how different states and the government are going to be issuing guidance on how some of these technologies can be used, and it's going to be, to Eric's point earlier, part of everyday life, and it's how we all adapt to it.
Yeah, and I like what both of you are saying. And of course, as you've all said, we're in such a dynamic environment that what was the equation of trust, risk, reward, balance is changing daily as the models become more and more capable and competent. And Joe, I see you're nodding your head. Did you have another thought on this?
Yeah, just what you just said, right? That acceptance of risk. In our business, if you look at phishing emails or business email compromise, the speed of how to react to that. So if you rewind to this time last year, there was some hesitancy of, hey, it's not worth the risk of disrupting the business or making a wrong decision where we're not going to leverage maybe AI or some of the automations to make those decisions. Fast forward to this time this year, and most of that risk has been tolerance has been lowered a little bit, where, hey, the risk of not doing something is greater than just taking maybe a potentially wrong action.
Yeah, and on that point, and then Angela, and I think that gets back to the nature of this conference. There is competition, and the competition will eat our lunch if we give them a chance, right? Mm-hmm. And figuring out when it's okay is exactly what we're doing as leaders all the time. Angela?
Yeah. To your point about, is more risk a better reward than not knowing? Mm-hmm. We're faced with that a lot in the department, and similar to your point about process automation. I think there's a very key role, putting my DoD hat on, in practitioners in this space being utilized to do the responsible maintenance, assurance, testing, and validation with respect to what we deploy in the department because of the risk. We have an incredibly low risk tolerance, and part of the culture shift that's occurring right now is the adoption of novel solutions, because knowing 20% more often is better than knowing nothing. But there's a lot of risk that comes with that. Sure. So the human in the loop becomes a key factor in adopting anything that has a low confidence rating, because ultimately before we make a choice, we have to know and have that human capacity stepped on top of it. However, having that 20% solution in front of us more often than not is better than nothing. And we'd rather have some information than none, and then there has to be a rubric on top of that, which is going to require humans in the loop. Even down to the level of data labeling, right? We have a massive amount of data. We haven't really talked about it a ton in this conversation, but everything that we're talking about relies upon it. But even in the task of data labeling, there must be humans in the loop taking that robotic automation or that manual transfer of that information into a bucket. Is or is not a hot dog, right? Is a car, is not a car, tank versus bus. There needs to be humans in the loop regularly auditing that material as well to ensure that we don't have models being built on top of flawed data sets. So I was trying to think of good phrases for it that didn't sound lame, like humans are gap fillers, we are glue, we are bridge. We need to come up with a really good phrase for it. But the human paradigm for how we can sort of take all of these automation processes together and then make sure that that human in the loop function builds that bridge between what's been pumped at us and then validating that it's real is, I think, where some of the key roles that we'll see the evolution of the workforce heading towards us.
I really appreciate that. I've got a number of questions here that talk about incentives. What are the incentives, or are you experimenting with incentives to incentivize existing workforces to become AI competent? And what about any outreach that you might be doing to university settings? We've seen a lot of outreach in universities on STEM. Is AI just another piece of STEM, or is it a +1 to STEM? And should we be doing more? So what are the incentives internal that you're seeing with your workforces? What are the internals that we might be positioning for university and university students? Anybody?
I think for us,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. Go ahead.
I think for us, the incentive, I think all of our workers, right, whether it's tech workers, marketing, sales, you name it, I think the incentive is they don't want to get passed up, right? They're seeing that, hey, this is a powerful tool. Our competitors are using it. Their internal competitors are using it, right? Like, who's gunning for their job? So I think that's been the biggest one for us, is just kind of that realization of like, hey, I'm going to get left behind if I'm not adopting this and using this. So, which may be the greatest incentive, I think, but.
You know, it's a funny incentive because I remember when 7 Habits were, highly effective people came out. You know, those that actually used it and applied it did get ahead, right? In some ways, we're in a similar kind of environment. Eric?
Just don't read the book Good to Great.
Never.
That one didn't pan out well for all of them, I think.
You don't want to be listed in that book. That's right. Go ahead.
I absolutely agree. I am not, I'm going to be frank, I'm not a big believer that you can come up with internal campaigns to otherwise cajole or to incent or to otherwise inspire workers. I think, you know, the capitalism being the worst form of governance, except for all the others that are terrible. I don't know who said that. Some smart person made that. Was it Churchill? Joke. You know, corporatism I don't like so much, but capitalism I do, and I think capitalism, just in its very nature of constantly striving for disruption and innovation and competition, is its own incentive. I keep coming back to the fact that if you're not spending, and I hate to sound professorial, no pun intended.
That's my job.
That's your job. I hate to sound professorial, but if you're not spending time with the free versions of all of these out there, and really testing your mettle of how they complement, how they alter, how they can shape, how they can influence your life, I'm telling you, the incentive is you will be left behind.
I would not say the word incentive. I would say investment. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't sound like a marketing thing, but it's not. Accenture has declared that we're investing $3 billion in upskilling our workforce. And it's not because we're trying to incentivize people to have the skills to go deliver for our solutions. It's because we truly believe that this is the future. We want everyone to be successful. And to Eric's point, if we invest and upskill and give folks the tools and the ability to learn how to use this stuff, they will be successful, which will enable our clients to be successful and us to be successful. So for us, it's like we're not, just to be blunt, we're not offering bonuses if you go get skilled, right? Where we are saying, you need to know this, here are the tools to go learn it, and we're investing in you, right? And I think there's I'm not saying it's a different mindset, but it's coming with weight to say, we all need to be thinking about how to use this, right?
If I wanted to stand on your shoulders, could I see sort of the tools you think are the most valuable to invest in? Are they out there? Oh, yeah. Avik, do you guys publicize that or talk about?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
been a minute, but yeah, I think so, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. Angela?
I'm not going to lie, if you pay attention to the NDAAs for the last 5 years, there's been more than 15 ways in which we've been voluntold to make sure that we're getting folks smart in this space. But one of the issues we face in the department is that anything that we do is a zero-sum game for folks who are currently there, meaning if you need to get trained, you've got to do it on your time. If you, we like to think that by putting together a bucket of bonuses that it'll incentivize people to get it. But I think fundamentally, what we're adopting and what we're trying to get people excited about has to solve problems for them. And the more that we can illustrate the art of the possible and how folks can actually find a way to work smarter or adopt their jobs easier is going to be the biggest selling tool of all. There were folks who didn't want to use the computer, and I don't know if any of us know how we would do our jobs without computers today, because it's just become part of our daily lives. So I think the more that we can create access, to Eric and Avik's point, the more we can create access to the appropriate tool sets within the environments that we have. And again, I operate in a weird world because it's the DoD, it's not open industry. The more we can adopt these tools to make it show how it makes life easier, the faster the adoption and awareness will become. We have a lot of incredibly curious people already in the department. And because the department invests in education so much, I've never seen more people with more degrees in one environment ever in my life. There's more PhDs that surround me on a daily basis. But we invest in that education, but we've got to give people the opportunity to use the education as well. So we do a lot of training and we get folks smart in areas that they don't actually get to exercise on a daily basis because we haven't caught up our careers and their career progression to be able to reflect those. So I think there's work in that space that we can do that will also reinforce people's investment in themselves because they'll be able to actually utilize that investment. So that's part of at least our unique operating environment is to be able to do that. Now, you asked a question about STEM as well. Mm-hmm. We also, as the CDAO, have invested a considerable amount with the Defense Civilian Training Corps to actually get after STEM education, where we're actually getting after sexy topics like data and the science of data and how to use it to your advantage. But we've enhanced some of the existing STEM programs out there purposefully to gain more exposure to students at even younger ages. So we have some of the investments that we're calling futures, because that's what we call it in the department, where we've actually really targeted a lot of the HBCUs, the historically black college and universities, and we're really targeting Title I schools and other places where we think there's a tremendous wealth of talent that just needs an opportunity to get recognized and then brought through the ranks to get there.
Yeah, I love that example, particularly in the context of the Institute of Applied Engineering that's right here, and the consortium of universities, including historically black universities, that are now signed up to participate in those kind of programs using the agency available through the Institute of Applied Engineering, which makes it so much easier to deal with or work with the government. Deal with's the wrong word, I guess. Partner with, collaborate with, and get our students in front of. In fact, we had 2 of our students from our business analytics program in here earlier who participate in a similar NSF program. Undergrads which is incredible. So we're very grateful. Sharon?
I'll just add that I think this generation coming through are very comfortable with technology and artificial intelligence already. So extending on giving them the opportunity, we should give them the opportunity because it blows my mind how my grandson will just pick up a device and know right what to do with it. So I think it's just at the enterprise level, giving the younger generations the opportunity to come in. They are already, again, very comfortable with technology.
Agreed. With that, and with your permission, I'd like to begin to wrap up. I'd desperately like to thank my panel for giving us an hour and a half of their lives they never get back. Thank you. Please. And I really appreciate the way you shared living, breathing examples of how AI enhances and offers an ability for all of us to take advantage, no matter where we're working, of the future of work. I hope you got some new ideas. Even if it was one new idea, maybe it's worthwhile. I think in our discussions, when somebody said, if anybody is still taking, and I repeated it earlier, minutes from meetings, you need to get an AI tool. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that tomorrow, okay? Today, we're done. If you got one idea out of it, I think we were successful. I do really appreciate the seasoned experience and the cross-section that you were exposed to today. So again, please help me thank them for joining us. Thank you all. Thank you.